I want you to picture this for a second. You're driving down the street you grew up on. The same street where you learned how to ride a bike. The same street you came back to after every hard moment in your life. It still feels familiar. Safe, even. Then you turn the corner, and something feels off. There's a moving truck parked in your father's driveway. Not yours. Someone else's. You slow down. There are people you've never seen before, walking in and out of the house, carrying boxes like they belong there. But they don't. That's your father's house. The house he built with his own hands. The house he lived in until the day he passed 14 months ago. And here's the thing. He didn't leave that house to strangers. He left it to you and your brother. 50-50. He told you that himself. So you're sitting there in your car, trying to make sense of what you're seeing. And then it hits you. Your brother already sold it. 6 weeks ago. Sold it, took every dollar, and never said a word to you. He was counting on one thing, that you'd never find out. But what he didn't realize, what he actually signed his own name to, was a single clause your father had quietly added to the deed before he died. One clause, and that one clause, it made everything your brother thought he got away with, completely and legally disappear. So don't go anywhere, because this story is about to go somewhere your brother never saw coming. Welcome to Proven Right Stories. If this is your first time here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now, because this is the place where the truth always comes out. No matter how deeply someone tried to bury it, and no matter how long they thought they got away with it, the truth always finds its way back to the surface. Now, before we get into today's story, I need you to do one thing for me. Get comfortable. Seriously, set your phone down if you need to. Grab a coffee, maybe a snack. Kick your feet up for a minute. Because this isn't the kind of story you have to listen to. This is the kind that makes you stop what you're doing. The kind where, somewhere in the middle, your jaw just drops and doesn't fully come back up until the very end. This is a story about a father, a man who spent 31 years building something real, with his hands, with his time, with every dollar he managed to save. It's a story about two brothers who were supposed to share that legacy. It's a story about a betrayal that almost worked perfectly. Almost. And it's a story about one quiet, careful, fatherly decision that changed absolutely everything. So, are you ready? Let's get into it. My name is Marcus Hall. I'm 58 years old, and I work in commercial construction. Warehouses, office parks, sometimes a school or a hospital wing. I've been doing this for 27 years, and I'm good at it. Not because I'm especially talented, but because I show up every single day. I do the job right the first time, and I don't leave until it's done. That's something I learned from my father, Raymond Hall. He was born in 1942 in a small town in Connecticut. Grew up in a house with 4 brothers, 1 bathroom, and more stubbornness than you could fit in a stadium. He didn't have a college degree, didn't have a trust fund, or a last name that opened doors. What he did have was a strong back, a steady mind, and the deepest belief I've ever seen in another person, that a man's character isn't what he says, it's what he does, consistently, over time, when nobody's watching, and nobody's keeping score. He worked 30 years at a manufacturing plant in Hartford, showed up before the whistle, stayed after, never called in sick unless he physically couldn't stand. And he saved money the way people who grew up without it do. Carefully, quietly, a little at a time, every single week, never making a show of it. In 1969, he met my mother, Patricia. She was a school teacher, had red hair, a laugh you could hear from 2 rooms away, and an opinion about everything. My father used to say, that's exactly why he married her. Because a man who already agrees with everything he thinks is just talking to himself. They got married in 1970, and in the spring of 1971, when my mother was 7 months pregnant with my brother, Daniel, Raymond Hall bought a small lot on Callaway Street. Quiet, dead-end road, lined with oak trees on the east side of Hartford. And he built a house. Not hired someone to build it. He built it himself. He poured the foundation himself, mixed the concrete out there in the August heat, poured it into forms he built with his own hands, then smoothed it out, slow and steady, until it was perfectly level. He framed every wall, hung every door, got the roof shingled before the first October frost rolled in, and the front walkway. He laid every single brick himself, one at a time, by hand, pressed each one into the sand with a rubber mallet. Because he used to say, a man who lays bricks one at a time pays attention to each one. I wasn't even born yet when he built that house. But I grew up inside those walls. And I grew up knowing exactly what they were made of. Not just wood, or brick, or concrete. Intention. My father's intention. Pressed into every surface, every corner, every inch of that place. The belief that anything worth having is worth building the right way. He used to say something so often I could probably still recite it in my sleep. A man who builds something with his own hands understands it differently than a man who just buys it. And by the time I was 12, standing next to him in the backyard on a Saturday afternoon, watching him fix a fence instead of calling someone else to do it, I understood exactly what he meant. My brother, Daniel, is 4 years older than me. He's 62 now, and I want to be fair to him, even after everything that happened. Because fairness matters. Daniel isn't a monster. He's not some cartoon villain. He's a man who made a series of choices. Choices that built on each other, little by little, until they turned into something. He probably never sat down and planned from the beginning. But they were still his choices. And that matters. Daniel left home at 18, right after high school, and moved to Atlanta to work in sales. And he was good at it. He had charm. He had energy. He could walk into a room full of strangers, and within 4 minutes, make someone feel like they were the most important person there. That kind of thing takes talent. He built a good life for himself. Nice apartment, nice car, the right watch on his wrist, the right confidence in his voice. He called home on birthdays. At Christmas, he came back maybe twice a year, sometimes 3 if something big was going on, and sometimes just once if it wasn't. And he loved our father. I believe that. I want to be clear about it, because nothing I'm about to say changes the fact that Daniel Hall sat in the front pew at his father's funeral, wearing a good suit, with real tears in his eyes. That love was real, but love and loyalty are not the same thing. And over the last 8 years of our father's life, that difference became very, very clear. The first diagnosis came 6 years before Dad died. Prostate cancer. Caught early. Treated successfully. He handled it the way he handled everything. Quietly. No complaints. No daily phone calls updating everyone. No making anyone feel like they had to rearrange their life. That was him. I rearranged mine anyway. Not because he asked, but because he was my father. And I was 3 miles away, with 2 working hands. In a truck. There was no reason in the world I shouldn't be there. From that point on, I was at the house on Callaway Street twice a week. Every week, I drove him to his oncology appointments on Thursdays. Sat with him in those waiting rooms. You know the kind. Bad lighting. Magazines from 3 years ago. And that very specific silence. The kind where everyone's there for the same reason. And nobody wants to be. I sat with him in that silence. I'd grab him coffee from the machine by the elevator. He always took it black, no sugar. And I'd sit next to him, and we'd talk. About baseball. About the neighbors. About whatever was going on at my job site. Because that's what he wanted to talk about. And what he wanted mattered more than whatever I had to say. After the appointments, I'd drive him home. And we'd sit in the kitchen for a while before I left. He'd make a pot of coffee. Real coffee. In that old percolator he'd had since 1984. And we'd just talk. Those afternoons, in that kitchen, they're some of the most important hours of my life. I mowed his lawn every Saturday, April through October. Didn't need to be asked. Didn't need to be thanked. I mean, he thanked me every time. But that's not why I did it. I fixed things when they broke. Cleaned the gutters in the fall. Shoveled the driveway after snowstorms. So he wouldn't have to. Daniel called on birthdays. And I want to be clear again. I'm not saying that to build a case against him. I'm saying it because it's true. And because the context matters. More than you might think right now. The cancer came back in the spring, the year before Dad died. Pancreatic this time. And if you've ever seen pancreatic cancer up close, in someone you love, then you already know what I'm about to say. If you haven't, I hope you never have to learn it the way I did. Pancreatic cancer doesn't negotiate. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't give you the courtesy of a long goodbye. It moves the way fire moves. When it finds dry wood. Fast, hot, and complete. They found it in March. He was gone by September. 6 months. And the last 2 of those months, he wasn't the same man I'd known my whole life. He was smaller, quieter, more tired, more turned inward. The way people do, when they're finishing something, and they know it. I was there. Daniel came in 3 times during those 6 months. 2 longer visits, and 1 near the end. A long weekend. By then, the doctors had already made it clear. We weren't counting months anymore. We were counting weeks. And I'm glad he came. I am. I'm glad my father got to see both his sons. In those final weeks. That mattered. Dad passed on a Thursday morning in September. It was quiet. He was in his own bed. In the house he built with his own hands. In the same room, where he'd slept beside my mother. For 42 years. Before she passed, I was there, holding his hand. Some moments belonged to a man privately, so I won't describe it in detail. But I will say this. When he went, there was a kind of peace in that room that stayed with me for days. Not happiness. Nothing like that. Something else. Something solid. The kind of quiet that only comes when a life has been lived all the way through. With intention, without apology, and with love. Raymond Hall was 81 years old, and he did it right. Daniel flew in for the funeral. He wore his best suit. He said the right things to the right people. He shook hands with everyone in the receiving line, stood at the podium, and spoke about our father in a way that was both genuine and true. And he cried. Those tears were real. I know my brother's face. And those tears weren't performance. 2 days after the funeral, we sat in the kitchen together for about an hour. The same kitchen, the same table, the old percolator still sitting on the counter where it always had been. Daniel said he would handle the paperwork with Gerald Pruitt, Dad's attorney, the man who had handled our father's legal affairs for over 30 years. Just estate logistics, he said. Nothing complicated. He'd keep me in the loop. We'd figure out the house together when we were both ready. When some time had passed, I told him there was no rush. And I believed him. I trusted my brother. I hugged him at the door. He hugged me back hard. The kind of hug where you feel a man's full weight in it, not just his arms. Then he got into his rental car and drove to the airport. That was the last normal conversation we ever had. 14 months passed. And in those 14 months, I kept going back to Calloway Street the same way I always had. Maybe not twice a week anymore. There was no one there needing appointments, no one to drive, but still, regularly, consistently. I kept the heat running through the winter so the pipes wouldn't freeze. I came by in February to fix a slow leak under the kitchen sink. Same pipes, same problem Dad had dealt with twice before, same solution. I cleared the gutters in early spring. Trimmed the big oak tree out front in March, when I noticed one of the upper branches had grown low enough to scrape the roof in strong wind. I treated that house the way my father taught me to treat things that mattered. With attention, with presence, with the understanding, his understanding, that he had passed down to me over 58 years of watching him. That some things require care even when nothing is obviously broken. Especially then. I wasn't thinking about selling the house. I wasn't thinking about the estate being fully settled. I wasn't thinking about anything at all, except keeping it the way he left it, for as long as it needed to be kept that way. And then came the morning that changed everything. Tuesday, April, early. I was driving down Calloway Street on my way to a job site. Same route I had taken 100 times before, maybe more. Same left turn off the main road. Same stretch of 3 blocks lined with oak trees and quiet, modest homes. Same familiar sight. That brick front walkway at the end of the block, coming into view through the windshield like it always had. But something made me slow down. There was a moving truck in the driveway. Not mine. A large white truck. Full-size, out-of-state plates I didn't recognize. It was backed up close to the front door. The ramp was already down, and on my father's front walkway, those bricks, those exact bricks he laid by hand in the summer of 1971. There was a family I had never seen before in my life. A woman with red hair and a green jacket was directing the movers. 2 kids, maybe 8 and 10, running back and forth between the truck and the house, full of that careless, endless energy children have. The kind of energy that doesn't yet understand what adults are really doing around them. And a man in a gray jacket stood near the back of the truck, checking something on his phone. Completely relaxed, completely comfortable, like he belonged there, like that house had always been his. I stopped my truck in the middle of the street. Just stopped it. A car behind me honked. Once, then again. I didn't move. My foot stayed on the brake. My hand stayed on the wheel. And I just sat there, staring through the windshield. A family I had never seen before in my life was carrying boxes through the front door of the house my father built. And something shifted in my chest. I don't have a precise word for it. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was something that comes before anger. Something cold. clear, and completely still. 10 seconds, maybe 15. Then I pulled over to the curb, put the truck in park, and got out. I walked up the front path. Those bricks under my shoes, solid, even, exactly the way he laid them. Every step felt familiar in a way that made everything else feel wrong. I approached the man in the gray jacket. He looked up from his phone as I came closer. "Excuse me." My voice came out steadier than I expected. He turned fully toward me. "Can I help you?" I looked at him, then at the house, then back at him. "This is my father's house," I said. "Raymond Hall. He built it in 1971. He passed away 14 months ago." I paused. "My name is Marcus Hall. I'm his son." The man's expression changed, not into guilt, but into something else. That uncomfortable realization people get when they suddenly understand they've stepped into something they were never meant to be part of. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. "I purchased this property 6 weeks ago," he said carefully, "through a licensed real estate broker. Everything was processed through the county recorder's office." He glanced at the paper, then back at me. The seller of record was a Daniel Hall. The morning air on Callaway Street felt like it stopped moving. "Daniel Hall," I repeated. "Yes." He hesitated, then added, "Is there some kind of problem here?" I stood there for a moment on those bricks, looking at him, looking at the house, at the open front door of my father's home. He hadn't done anything wrong. He was just in the middle of it. I finally spoke. "There's going to be one." Then I turned and walked back to my truck. I called Daniel before I even turned the key in the ignition. My phone was already in my hand before I fully sat down. His name was still at the top of my recent calls. 14 months later, still there. I hit it. 1 ring. 2. 3. 4. He picked up on the 4th. "Marcus. Hey." 2 words. And somehow, in those 2 words, I heard everything. I heard the delay before he answered. I heard the flatness in his voice where warmth should have been. I heard the specific kind of tone a person uses when they've been waiting for this call for a long time and still aren't ready for it. "You sold the house, Daniel." Silence. Not confusion. Not shock. Silence of calculation. The kind where someone is already deciding what version of the truth to use next. "Listen, I was going to call you about this. Things just moved faster than I expected. There were some timelines I was dealing with, and You sold Dad's house." I didn't raise my voice. Same tone. Same volume. Same steadiness. Without saying a word to me. Without my name on a single document. Without my signature on anything. "Marcus, it's okay. Look, it's complicated. During the estate settlement process, I was still working with power of attorney, and there were certain documents that gave me the ability to. That expired, Daniel." Still calm. "The estate was closed. Gerald Pruitt finalized it 8 months ago. We both know that." There was a longer silence this time. And when he finally spoke again, the sales voice was gone. What came through instead was something else. Something stripped down. Raw. And for the first time in the entire conversation, it sounded like the truth was starting to slip out. "I needed the money, Marcus." His voice cracked just slightly now, like the structure he had been holding up was starting to bend. "The deal in Atlanta, the one I told you about last year, it fell apart completely. There were debts. Things I had to settle. People I owed. A breath. I needed to move on it. I needed the cash, and I needed it fast. And I thought maybe once everything was sorted out I could. I don't know. I just needed to move on it. I want you to sit with that for a moment. Really sit with it. Because what my brother was saying in that moment was simple, urgent, practical even. But what it collided with was something much bigger. Raymond Hall spent 50 years building something. Not just a house. A life's work. Pressed into every brick of that front walkway. Framed into every wall. Saved into every nail. Every board. Every decision. That house held everything. It was where his wife lived and died. Where he sat on Sunday mornings with his coffee, watching that oak tree, completely at peace. It was the house he told both his sons, clearly, directly, that it belonged to them. Together. And Daniel needed to move on it. I didn't say anything else. I hung up. I sat in the truck on Callaway Street with my hands in my lap. And I let it settle. Not all at once. But piece by piece, like something heavy dropping into place. I watched the moving truck finish. I watched the last boxes disappear inside. I watched the ramp fold up. I watched the truck pull away. I sat there until the man in the gray jacket went inside and closed the front door of my father's house. I sat there until the shadow of the oak tree shifted across the yard, the same way it had 1,000 times before. Slow, steady, completely indifferent to everything happening beneath it. And then, I started the engine, and I drove to Gerald Pruitt's office. Gerald Pruitt has been a practicing attorney in Hartford County for 31 years. He's a quiet man, small, precise, always in a gray suit, always with a legal pad on his desk, even when he's not writing anything, as if the possibility of something important being said is reason enough to keep paper nearby. He handled my mother's small estate. He updated my father's documents twice over the years, and he was at my father's funeral, sitting 6 rows back. I noticed him, and I remembered, because that's the kind of detail you don't forget about a man like him. I walked into his office without an appointment. His secretary, the same woman who had been at that front desk for as long as I could remember, looked up the moment I came in. She didn't ask questions. She just read my face and picked up the phone. "I'll let him know you're here, Marcus." Gerald came out in about 90 seconds. He looked at me the way careful people do, like they can tell something has happened, but they're waiting for you to say it out loud before they step into it. He didn't say anything at first, just turned slightly and gestured toward his office. I sat across from his desk, and I told him everything. The moving truck, the man in the gray jacket, the name on the paperwork, Daniel Hall, the phone call. I didn't embellish it. I didn't need to. Gerald listened without moving. No interruptions, no reactions, no changes in expression, just stillness. When I finished, he didn't speak right away. He reached down into his bottom desk drawer, pulled out a thick brown folder. My father's name was written on the tab. He set it on the desk between us. "Marcus," he said, quiet, deliberate, carefully choosing every word. "Your father came to see me alone 6 months before he passed." A pause, when things had gotten serious, when it was clear to both of us where this was heading. I didn't respond. I didn't move. I just waited. And for the first time that day, I didn't even realize I wasn't breathing. He updated his estate documents at that appointment. Not the will itself, but the deed to the property. Gerald opened the folder to a page marked with a colored tab. Specifically, he requested the addition of a covenant restriction clause. He turned the folder toward me. This clause requires that any sale, transfer, assignment, lease, or encumbrance of the property at 412 Callaway Street must have the written and notarized consent of both named heirs before any transaction can be legally executed. He looked up at me over his reading glasses. Both, not one, both heirs, together, in writing, notarized. I stared at the page. Did Daniel know about this? My voice came out quieter than I expected. Gerald didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to another tab page and pointed toward the bottom of the document. I leaned forward. My father's signature was at the top. Clear, familiar, the same handwriting I had known my entire life. Below it, on the left side, was mine, dated 8 months earlier. I remembered that appointment. Gerald had called us both in to sign what he said was routine estate paperwork. I hadn't read every line. I trusted him. I trusted that if he said it was routine, it was routine. On the right side was Daniel's signature. Same date, same meeting. Both of us had signed it. Both of us had acknowledged the document. Both of us had confirmed, in writing, that we had been informed of the restriction. Daniel had sat in this office, across this exact desk, and signed that page. He had seen it. His name was on it. And 14 months later, he had sold the house alone, taken every dollar, as if that document never existed. He had either forgotten what he signed, or he had assumed I would never find out. Either way, he had made the most expensive mistake of his adult life. I leaned back in my chair, and something settled over me in that moment. Something hard to describe. It wasn't satisfaction. Not yet. It wasn't anger. Not fully. It was something quieter, colder. The feeling of seeing the full shape of something hidden, and realizing you can never unsee it again. I looked at Gerald Pruitt. What are our options? He interlaced his fingers, leaned forward slightly, and then he said 6 words. Slow, clear, certain. Words I don't think I'll ever forget. "Marcus, the sale is not valid." What followed was 11 weeks of legal process that I won't walk you through in full detail. Partly because some of it is still technically active, and my attorney has been very clear about that. But I will tell you the shape of it. The real shape. Because you deserve to understand what actually happened. My attorney was a woman named Carol Reeves. Sharp, Precise. The kind of lawyer who doesn't waste words or patience. She came recommended by Gerald, and I trusted her from the first meeting, not because she was warm, but because she looked at me and said, "Tell me everything. Leave nothing out. I can only work with the truth." She filed a motion to void the sale based on violation of the covenant restriction. Tom Brennan, the man in the gray jacket, whose family had moved into the house, was completely innocent. That matters. He went through every proper legal channel. He paid full market value. He did everything the right way. And I want to be absolutely clear about that, because it mattered to me throughout this entire process. His family didn't deserve to be punished for what someone else had done, and they weren't. There were 3 separate court hearings. There were documents that took 2 full weeks to locate in county records that hadn't been digitized yet. And there was a deposition, a long one, 2.5 hours. I sat across a conference table from my own brother, and Daniel didn't look at me once. Not when I walked in, not when I sat down, not during a single question, not once in 2.5 hours. He sat there with his palms flat on the table, his eyes fixed somewhere between his hands, and he answered questions in a voice I barely recognized. Flat, controlled, careful, like a man who knows exactly what he's done and has finally run out of places to put it. During that deposition, I thought about our father. I thought about Raymond Hall sitting in Gerald Pruitt's office 6 months before he died. I thought about him making that drive himself, sitting in that chair, asking for that covenant clause, signing those documents, and then asking for both of his sons to be brought in separately to sign the acknowledgement, under the idea that it was routine paperwork, so neither of us would be alarmed, so neither of us would feel accused of anything. He did all of that quietly. He didn't tell me. He didn't warn me. He didn't say a single word about it. He had simply, carefully put a protection in place. The way a man who spends his life building things reinforces a structure before storm arrives. Not because he knows the storm is coming, but because he loves it too much to leave anything important unprotected. He knew his sons, both of them, completely, without illusion. And I believe that, fully, he loved both of us. But he also understood something else. He understood the difference between the son who had been there every week for 8 years, and the son who called on birthdays. And he did what careful fathers sometimes do. He planned for a future he hoped would never happen. The court ruled 11 weeks after Carol filed. The sale of 412 Callaway Street was declared legally invalid due to violation of the covenant restriction clause recorded in the deed. Tom Brennan was fully compensated. Every dollar of his purchase price, plus legal fees and additional damages, paid directly from Daniel's sale proceeds by court order. Daniel also faced a separate civil judgment for breach of fiduciary duty. I've been asked not to go into the exact figures publicly, but I will say this. It was significant. The kind of consequence that doesn't just pass quickly. The kind that follows a man for years. The house came back. Not to me alone. That part matters. Back to both of us. Equally. Exactly as the will stated. Exactly as my father intended. I didn't want to take anything away from Daniel. I need you to understand that. This was never about punishment, even though what he did deserved it. This was about honoring what Raymond Hall built. About protecting the thing he had asked both his sons to safeguard. Some things are worth the cost of standing for them. My father built one of those things. I went back to Callaway Street on a Thursday morning in late August. The summer light was long and golden. That late August kind of light that makes everything feel slightly more permanent than it really is. Like the world is holding its breath before the season changes. I parked on the street, got out, walked up the front path. Those bricks, still exactly the way he laid them. I put the key in the door and stepped inside. Tom Brennan's family had taken care of the place. I had hoped they would, and they had. The kitchen was clean, the floors unchanged. The walls still that warm off-white my father picked out himself in 2009, after bringing home 3 different sample cans from the hardware store before choosing the right one. I walked through every room slowly. The living room, where afternoon light still came in at the same angle it always had. The hallway, the same one from 1984, sitting in the back left corner like it had never left. I took it out, filled it, put it on the stove, and I sat at the kitchen table while it began to brew. That slow, familiar sound filled the room. The same sound I had heard my entire life. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't think about court hearings, or lawyers, or depositions, or my brother. I just sat there, inside those walls, feeling all of it at once. The weight of a place that was built by someone who truly understood what building something means. And the quiet, steady grace of it still being here. When the coffee was ready, I poured it into one of the mugs from the cabinet and sat back down. And I thought about my father. I thought about the man who had mixed concrete in the August heat just so he could pour a foundation before his first son was even born. The man who laid every brick in that front walkway one at a time, so he would pay attention to each one. The man who drove himself to an attorney's office 6 months before he died and asked for something simple, a piece of paper that would protect what he had built. Not loudly, not dramatically, not with any announcement, just quietly, carefully, the way he did everything. I thought about the fact that he had seen this coming, or at least something like it. Not in certainty, not in accusation, but in understanding. He didn't need proof of what might happen. He just loved his sons enough and knew them well enough to prepare for it anyway, just in case. That was Raymond Hall. That was who he was. And more than the house, that is what he built. Not just walls and a roof. An example of what it means to show up, what it means to be consistent, what it means to protect the things you love. Not with speeches, but with action. Quiet, steady, unremarkable looking action. The kind that doesn't look important at the time, but turns out, in the end, to be the only kind that lasts. I sat in that kitchen for 2 hours, maybe a little more. The morning light moved across the floor the way it always had. The house made its small sounds. The settling, the pipes, that familiar creak in the back door when the wind came through it just right. I'd heard that sound since I was 6 years old. When I finally stood up, I washed the mug and put it back where it belonged. Then I walked out onto the porch. The oak tree was right there. Same place it had always been. Solid, wide, unmoved, completely indifferent to everything that had happened in its shadow over the past 14 months. The same tree I climbed as a kid. The same tree my father used to watch from this porch on Sunday mornings, coffee in hand, completely at peace. The same tree I trimmed in March when one branch started getting too close to the roof. Still standing, still itself, still doing exactly what it had always done. I stood there on that porch for a long time, and standing there, I understood something. Something I think my father had understood his entire life, and something I was only just beginning to fully see. Some things, when you build them right, when you love them right, with consistency, with patience, with attention, without asking for credit, without keeping score, those things outlast everything that tries to take them down. The betrayal, the court dates, the phone calls, the lawyers, the depositions, all of it tried to break this apart, and none of it did, because the foundation was too solid, because the man who built it was too careful, too intentional. Raymond Hall built one of those things, and it was still standing. If this story meant something to you today, if even a part of it landed somewhere real, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit the like button. Subscribe to Proven Right Stories if you haven't already. And drop a comment below. Tell me what you're thinking. I read every single one. And I mean that. Some things deserve to be told. I'll see you on the next one.